Next is about the power of human-to-human marketing. And I love this segment personally because this is something that it's a reality, is an everyday occurrence for brand ambassadors, for brand marketeers, for people dealing with messages in the digital age. It's something that it's come naturally. And in a way, there's a madness out there. And for the first time, people are putting method behind the madness. And for the first time, we're figuring out what this is really all about, how you can manage it, how do you stop it from getting out of hand, out of control, which, of course, we know has brought a lot of tears to a lot of brand custodians in the past few years. And it's brilliant because these two people really have done it. Carlos Garcia is the CEO of Nobox. These people are really trying to harness the power of social media marketing. So Carlos, welcome to tell us your story. And we also have Fabiana Farias with Marriott International for Latin America and the Caribbean to also tell us how they're doing this human-to-human marketing. And it is so true, that old adage that a picture's worth 1,000 words. Well, a recommendation is worth 1,000 ad dollars. And to tell us how you get there, how you make this work, get it started and control it, first to Carlos. Carlos, what is H2H, or human-to-human marketing?
Thank you, Juan. So the goal and the power of human-to-human marketing is transforming your customers into your marketers. And basically, like the key proposition is that you want to not just create a connection between the brand and the consumer. That is extremely powerful. But the true power of human-to-human marketing happens, that's just the tip of the iceberg, happens below the surface, where consumers connect with other consumers, human-to-human, and elevate your brand at a massive scale. So that's...
Right, and Fabiana, what is human-to-human marketing for Marriott?
So I think it's twofold. It is our consumers talking to other consumers about it as well. But from the standpoint of Marriott, so Marriott is a company that was started 87 years ago. And we have a service culture, a deeply ingrained service culture. And our associates around the world at each of the 4,000 locations, 19 brands, we have this absolute desire to connect emotionally with each of our guests, one-on-one, human to human, from each associate to each guest, making that connection. And they strive to deliver the brand promise and to help each guest achieve their trip purpose. So from our perspective, it's not just consumers talking to consumers, but it's our staff, our force, making the connection with our guests and amplifying the power of the brand.
Give us a bit more detail. What have you done in terms of getting a marketing campaign done focused on human to human? What specifically have you done? When did it start? How do you manage it? How many people? What goes on in making it happen?
So we actually have, in this particular time for the past year, we've started to implement a few initiatives to totally transform the Marriott Hotels and Resorts brand, which is our signature brand. And we are doing so with the help of our guests. So we are co-creating. We have been inviting our guests to co-create with us. Last year we had a contest where guests actually developed a healthy vending machine. This year you can see an example in the UK how we are co-creating the guest room of the future with our guests. And then we'll show a little bit later on an example of how we're doing that in Latin America.
Yeah, I want to talk about that. But before, let's still stay at the top level, and then
Sure.
we'll talk about specifics. But let's talk about the effectiveness. Have you measured the actual effectiveness of a message delivered by a consumer as opposed to by a brand directly to a consumer?
Yeah, the key aspect there is trust and authenticity, right? The best marketing is a friend's recommendation. For example, do you watch House of Cards on Netflix? If I introduce you to House of Cards, that has social currency. It elevates my profile because I am sharing with you something that is going to be a great entertainment experience. And it has a great equation for both the person that is sharing and the person that is receiving it, but at the same time, it elevates the brand. So.
And Fabiana, have you measured the effectiveness of you as a brand manager, a marketeer, talking to the consumer as opposed to consumer to consumer? Do you see a jump in bookings? Do you see much more traffic coming into a specific part of your website? Do you see more people interacting with the brand? Have you measured that?
Of course, of course. Marriott, if there's one thing we do at Marriott is measure. We measure everything. So as an example, we did an exercise this year with a group of students from Brigham Young University. 13 students, Generation Y, millennials, 20-year-olds that have no particular connection to the brand. But we asked them to do a deep analysis on our 78 hotels in the Caribbean and Latin America specifically. And what were our guests talking about the hotels, specifically on guest reviews? And what were the competitors doing? So they did an analysis of 15,000 guest reviews for the 78 hotels, plus 240 competitors. And they have, as a result, encouraged us, our hotels, to implement a series of actions specifically to improve their reputation management. And we've seen very positive results. So when we look at the overall popularity index of our hotels for this year, year to date, as a result of the implementation of these initiatives, we see a tremendous lift in overall popularity versus the lifetime of all the guest reviews. So, and that's just one example.
Right. And as you measured everything, how much is H2H a phenomenon of the millennials? Because Bob with Viacom just told us that the millennials, indeed, they do want to be part of a brand. They don't necessarily want to own it. So, and older people, they in a way, they can't be bothered to do the write-up, to do the commentary, to recommend. They don't participate as much. So how much is it a millennial thing? Is it a generational thing that is part of that younger millennial generation and then dissipates? Or is it something that this millennial generation is going to carry on doing and is now something that is cross-generation?
I think it's cross-generation, but it definitely is amplified with millennials. You know, millennials do not want to be preached to by a brand. A great strategist that is here in the audience showed me that you want to market with millennials, not to them, right? You know, like, and you want to make them part of your campaign. And I think that the no-nonsense attitude of millennials, you know, and the rejection to any brand that it's just trying to push something at them makes H2H mandatory if you want to get into the millennial mindset and be successful with them. And looking at the numbers of millennials, as we all know here, you know, like, we have to tune in to how do we get into that mindset and be successful with them.
Well, let's probe a bit that. How do we specifically do that, Carlos? So what are the methods, what are the principles to get started and to manage it and make sure it doesn't get out of hand? Are there any components? Is there a magic formula?
Well, it's part science and part art, but I'll tell you of the method as you were referring to in the introduction. You know, like, the first thing is you have to listen, and sometimes brands do not listen to what customers are saying. We do a lot of research and stuff like that, but it stays in pie charts. You know, it's looking at really what are the insights and distill what the insights are, learn from those, and really look for what is already being shared organically in your industry. If you don't mind, I'll share one example that will exemplify this a little bit more. And here, you know, like, in the context of travel, you know, like, many of us consider that travel is inherently social. But if you look at this wheel, you know, like, why people share and what compels them to share. On one side, you have the narcissistic desire to elevate your profile, to say where you are, that you are traveling, you know, like, obviously, you know, share your great travel experiences. And that is engaging to other people that are seeing it because, first of all, if they are your friends, they may be curious about where you are, but in a more selfish level. And again, you know, like, a lot of this is social science, understanding the psychology of why people share and why it's acceptable for them to share these human-to-human interactions. it allows them, the people that are receiving the message, it gives them an opportunity to say something about themselves. So I made, post this morning that I was running in the boardwalk here in the Fontainebleau, and a friend may say, oh, you should try Scarpetta, like they have a great restaurant. They're basically elevating their own profile by saying, I've been there, I know the place, and then share, an experience that they've had. And all of this is socially acceptable because it's entertaining, it's useful because I may learn about new travel experiences that I want to have. And when we look at a brand like Marriott, what Marriott has done brilliantly is to be able to harness what consumers are saying. Fabiana was just sharing the example of TripAdvisor, and that is one channel that is very specific to your travel experience. But it happens not just on social networks. Human to human is not just social marketing. The evidence of it is found in social networks very easily, right? I look for a hashtag on Twitter. I look what people are saying about my brand on Instagram. All of that is very easily found. But the human behavior transcends social networks.
I understand all this, but I'm still not getting an answer to how do you get it started? What are the components? I mean, you advise brands like Marriott to do, human-to-human marketing. So yes, you do listen to these people. They do have a narcissistic need to share where they are and so on. That's the insight. But how do you get started? How does Marriott stimulate people to say, indeed, I am at this beautiful Marriott. I'm walking down the plank on the waterfront and so on and so on. How do you actually get the conversation started?
So I think it starts with listening. The internal process is by listening. But to refer to something that Jason Silva said this morning, I think in this day and age where the media and the consumer pendulum has swung so heavily, the conversation has swung so heavily to the consumer side, you have to awe guests. Your brands have to break through the clutter with just brilliant creative that inspires them to share. But I think it starts with listening. So you take, Marriott.com as an example. It's a $10 billion channel for us. That is where our guests actually make the transaction, convert to stay with us. Nothing on that site is done without numerous A/B testing iterations and going back to the drawing board time and time again until they find the right combination of results and the functionality that best suits the guest to then compel them to repeat the purchase. So I think it's a cycle. You start with listening, you create compelling, content is king, as some of the previous presenters mentioned, content that compels them, and then you iterate, and it's that cycle. And
it has to be something unexpected that they did not experience, were expecting to experience in the Marriott, so they walk into a lobby and there's something clever, funny, inspiring, and that creates the conversation. It's
the emotional connection, right?
Go ahead, Carlos.
So one thing that we measure is the viral factor, right? And when Fabiana,
the what? Sorry.
Viral factor.
The barrier factor.
Viral factor. So think of Ebola virus, right? It spreads. And the reason why it's an outbreak is because for every person that gets it, one or more people get it as well. So it's an uncontrolled virus. That same applies to H2H marketing in a positive way, not in the negative way of an Ebola virus, but. We listen, we iterate, and we're looking for the things that have that viral factor of one or more. So the things that, if you have something that only every user that does it only gets you half a user, that will not scale. But if you have the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge, where every person that does it challenges 3 people, and out of those 3 people that are challenged, at least one or more than one does the Ice Bucket Challenge in the next 24 hours, that has the velocity and the scale. So you were asking about, the science, and sure, it starts with listening, and there's a ton of listening, there's a lot of, and sometimes, it's adopting the things that have that organic and natural wildfire aspect that they will grow.
So virality and at the same time something that is awe-inspiring and kick it off. We talked about Marriott. Carlos, let's talk about, I understand you want to talk about two cases, Electrolux and GoPro. The two brands do it quite well. Tell us about your experience understanding their cases. What insights did you get from them before you started Marriott?
Sure.
So we, as it relates to human marketing, collaboration, putting together the content for the panel. There's a company we're really watching. The success of their YouTube channel and the enormous engagement they drive with the consumers is just unbelievable. So we have a couple of examples of videos, favorite videos. So GoPro is one. Pelican learning to fly is one. I don't know, I think we have a slide. So, check it out if you have a chance. But also they have a new video for their GoPro 4, Hero 4 camera. They just launched it 2 days ago. And that video got 1 million views within 14 hours.
So I don't understand. This is a viral video. What does this have to do with a consumer recommending a brand? I mean, is he the consumer, this bird, or
I don't know.
I'm lost.
Yeah.
So this story, I was touched by this story. It's this man that found this pelican on the beach, and he didn't know, I guess he was abandoned by his mother. He didn't know how to fly. So he's teaching this pelican how to fly. And he learns how to fly, and the footage is just absolutely phenomenal. So that got me, and as well as I want to say this has over 3 million or more views on GoPro. Is this done by GoPro? Is this branded content? This is a GoPro. This is branded content GoPro.
Okay. So this is not a off-the-street consumer that is doing.
No, this was a consumer. It's that man that was teaching the pelican how to fly. They shared this video with GoPro, and GoPro has amplified it on their channels. Okay. So this is one example.
And also what is brilliant about what GoPro has done as it relates to H2H is that their entire product, their entire setup as a company is designed to be shared, right? Like you have a fantastic device to capture great experiences like this that has all this versatility. So everything starts for them in H2H. It doesn't start with a marketing campaign. It starts with the product, and that is the type of thing that we want to embrace. Like in the opening remarks, Charlie was talking about companies like Uber Media, Airbnb, like companies that by definition are designed to be shared. They provide value at the level that the people that say, I'm using Uber, they are elevating their own profile. So that becomes like that viral factor of one or more than one.
Yeah, I mean, GoPro is a no-brainer. If you cannot do branded content or clever viral marketing with it, I mean, let's even get started. But how about with, appliances, Electrolux, how are they doing H2H?
So this was another example of a video that I received from a friend, and I was just so touched by it. They did an absolutely beautiful job in telling a very human story in a very understated way. So I think basically she's getting ready to go to college, and I guess, do you guys want to just listen to the video and watch it?
Sure.
Minha mãe, ficar longe dela. E ela sempre falava, quando chegasse o dia, ela não ia querer ir comigo no aeroporto. Pra ela voltar sozinha ia ser muito difícil.
Comparecer ao balcão da companhia, segundo andar do primeiro. Passageiros, por gentileza, que eu formar uma zona de espelho.
Senhoras e senhores, boa noite. Nos desculpem pela interrupção. Letícia, sua mãe, tem uma mensagem para você.
Oi, Lê. Tudo bem? Como tá indo o voo? Nesse período que você vai estar fora, eu vou estar aqui, torcendo por você. É o primeiro dia das mês que a gente não vai estar juntas. Mas não se preocupa, filha, porque o meu maior presente é ter você como filha. Aproveita seu jantar. Eu fiz com muito amor. E manda notícias.
I love it, very insightful, it touches your heart, but I'm sorry to challenge you a bit here, but she's an actress. This is a high-level production, she's not?
Well, I mean, it's all in the eye of the beholder, right? So, I mean, how many of you were touched by this video?
I'm sure they were. But the point I'm trying to make is human-to-human marketing is sort of more of a spontaneous thing, where somebody is recommending a brand because he's having a good brand experience. These seem to be, highly polished pieces of branded content. How is this age to age from your point of view?
From my perspective, it is, because I had not heard about Electrolux probably in the last 10 years. And I got this video, and I just had this desire to share, because I thought it was beautifully done. It touched me as a consumer, and to this day, every time I watch it, it brings tears to my eyes. But I think that human to human is not just the actual consumer doing it. It's brands doing it in a human way, the human marketing in a human way.
Okay, but it's different, because before we talked about the consumer talking to other consumers opposed to the brand through a consumer talking to a wide variety of consumers. Yeah. Let's talk about platforms. How do you get this started? The obvious ones are Facebook and Twitter, but it's getting more sophisticated than that. Apparently there's Amazon, there's eBay, you can do Google Play and so on.
Yeah, sure. It's wherever the consumer is being vocal and sharing, and whether it's like you mentioned, Google Play. If I am marketing an app, I want to track reviews the same way that Marriott tracks reviews on TripAdvisor. So, and you start listening there, and you start engaging consumers to give you good reviews if they're trying your app, and you see that all the time, in apps that you may like Uber, for example, will prompt you to provide a review, and that's a way that brands get this started. But also, those are channels where you can amplify as well, and we spend a lot of time now looking at influencers, and not just influencers in the sense of celebrities, because those tend to be sponsored. So, you want Ashton Kutcher tweeting about your brand, it's going to cost you $200,000, and everyone knows that is a transaction. We're looking at the long tail of influencers across social networks and looking at them as media assets as well from the perspective of a marketer, right? Because we want that authenticity, we want to create content that is designed to be shared, and those are kind of the examples that we're sharing here.
Right. And of course, the obvious question, which is a difficult question to answer, is how do you not lose control? The moment you hand it over to an influencer, to an ambassador, what can you do to mitigate the obvious risks of that ambassador who might do something slightly wrong or not to brand?
Yeah. I think that starts at the planning stage, and we see a lot of campaigns, where we need to ask ourselves, not only if people will share this, that's kind of the genesis of how ideas, H2H ideas, come about, but also, can this backfire? Is this something that our competitors could hijack our campaign, our hashtag, and all of a sudden the entire campaign turns on us, and also when we talk about the planning stage, look at disasters like what we saw at the Oscars about a year ago, that great selfie, that Ellen DeGeneres took, it was supposed to be a sponsored tweet for Samsung, for the new Samsung Galaxy, whatever the number was at that moment, but it was tweeted from an iPad. So all of a sudden, the power of that superhuman, in this case, a celebrity influencer, getting to all their user base, completely backfired, and then you had a lot more noise in social networks talking about how that had backfired than actually
the selfie itself.
Than the selfie itself.
From Marriott, I think as long as you stay true to your brand promise and to your core values, even if you're not in the conversation, your loyal guests, your most avid advocates, your brand protectors, they will defend your brand even if you're not there. So take the case of Marriott Rewards. We have 45 million members on Marriott Rewards, even if we're not there. When guests ask questions about the loyalty program on channels like Flyer Talk, our Marriott Rewards members know the program inside and out better than I do. So they will answer, they will correct, and they will defend the brand even if we're not there. So I think, again, the true importance is to stay, close to your, true to heart to your brand promise and to your core values. There's always, companies that are going to have users that attack the brand unnecessarily, unwarranted attacks on your brand. But I think that your defenders, if you have made the emotional connection with your users, with your guests, with your consumers, they will defend your brand.
Yeah. How do you scale this, Carlos?
There's many media innovations that allow us to scale this, and one of the latest ones that you probably heard this week, Facebook announced Atlas, right? At Ad Week in New York, and basically it allows us to target people and people-based marketing, right? So what we do, and kind of like the secret sauce of a lot of what we do is, we look. We listen, we find those insights, we look for what has the potential to grow organically, and then we add fuel to the fire by exposing that to many people. So, if you allow me, I'll share one example of, this is kind of like a double hit, right? HP hired influencers to create these videos on Vine, right? So it's a set of videos on Vine, but then they took what was already a social human-to-human campaign, they amped it up by bringing influencers into the mix, which obviously amplified that to a ton of people on Vine, but then they took that one level higher and they took that to TV. So what we're seeing is many examples, like Miller Lite did this the other day, where brands are taking content from real consumers, some of them influencers, like in this case, some of them just the average consumer, and they are making that part of their media creative that it's going to be amplified. So, do you mind if I play the video? It's
sure, let's have a look.
Yeah.
Right.
Sorry. So this was another example. I don't know if I can go back with this. Thank you. So this is another example, and again, this is actually a campaign that we worked on, but we didn't want to show the campaign because we don't want it to be self-serving. But this is kind of like the genesis of the ideas. We were looking for things that people will tweet around the launch of PlayStation 4. And we came across this tweet from a real user, and we came across hundreds of tweets like this, but many of them were using the hashtag #VivaPlay. And we thought that that was a celebration of PlayStation, a celebration of the PlayStation 4 and gaming in general. So we amplified that. And like to your question of how do we amplify, we took something that had some organic traction, maybe a couple of hundred people were talking about it, and we built it into a campaign that all of a sudden.
And it's a perfect example of listening. Somebody
Definitely.
was watching, monitoring that, picked on that, and run with it. Yeah,
and we took it from hundreds of people talking about this and using this hashtag to hundreds of thousands of people.
Fabiana, quickly, let's close with co-creation, because I know you put a lot of emphasis into this at Marriott.
Sure.
Tell us about co-creation with humans to get to other humans.
Sure. So, and we actually have an example too. So, as I mentioned, we are co-creating, or we set on this initiative to transform the Marriott brand a year ago, and we launched a campaign called Travel Brilliantly. So you can go to travelbrilliantly.com and you'll see a number of examples of how we are co-creating with our guests. So it started with a contest last year for a healthy vending machine that actually was a consumer idea that won. That now is available at one of our hotels. We have a number of other proofs of concept. There is a project with MIT. We are doing a number of various things throughout the world. So in Latin America, we are just getting ready to launch this campaign, and it's about what does it mean for you to travel brilliantly? And so it will invite guests to share with us the meaning of travel brilliantly in their perspective. So a lot of this content that is user-generated content will then become the next phase of our campaigns moving forward.
Right, we have time for one or two questions. Let's light up the floor, please. And I am determined to get you to ask questions. So light up the floor, please. I can hardly see anybody here with these bright lights in front of me. Anybody wants to kick in? Have any of you have to do this H2H campaigns? Has your experience been similar to theirs? Question right there. And if you could identify yourself, it would be perfect. Thank you.
Of course, yeah. My name's Alex Bransell. I'm from M&M Global. You mentioned that millennials don't like to be preached to by a brand and that sort of, I guess, one-way communication style. You also flagged up a couple of the really big viral successes of the last 12 months, the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge, the Oscars selfie tweet. Do you think there's going to be a point where millennials and Gen Y or whatever comes next are going to start to become cynical about this type of marketing? You know, they're going to see a really self-consciously attempt at viral marketing and actually it's going to leave them cold.
That's a very good question, and I'm sure they will. And I think that the way that we mitigate that is, like going back to this concept that you market with millennials, not at them. So basically, you have to find authenticity in how we are generating these campaigns, and that's basically the moment that you lose authenticity. Millennials will smell that, like they will sense that, and like they will walk away from your brand, and then your brand becomes like that higher entity that is sending stuff down to you. So,
how many people actually knew that was a sponsored piece of content by Samsung? Because it's the same thing as the Olympics with Mr. Bean and doing the video with Chariots of Fire. A lot of people did not know that was product placement.
Well, I think that's a perfect example, right? Because if they had not tweeted from an iPad the image that was supposedly taken with the iPhone, with the Samsung Galaxy new phone, so no one would have known, and everyone would have thought, well, here's like Ellen DeGeneres using her Samsung doing a selfie, and it wouldn't have backfired most likely. But the fact that people found out that was architected and it backfired, then it has a negative impact on the brand.
And what would be your advice to counter the possible cynicism to come? Should you be upfront about it, or should you just let the content run on its own and pretend that is a natural moment at the Oscars?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's probably a lot of crisis management experts. Like once it gets to that point, now you're dealing with
initially, what would be your advice to a client? Say this is a piece of sponsored content?
In my opinion, like I think that using celebrity endorsements has its place, obviously, in marketing, as it has forever. In the type of marketing that we do, and through Age to Age, anyone knows that whenever a celebrity like LeBron James does something with your brand, there's a sponsorship behind it. So that's why we like to work with the long tail, like if you will, the people that have 1,000 followers on Twitter or 10,000 followers on Twitter, not 100,000.
Fabiana, what is your criteria? Do you have a policy at Marriott? If you do co-creation, would you declare it as so?
Yeah, I think so. I think we would, again, staying true to our core values, and it's about, honesty and,
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, I believe there was a question here. No? Did I see a hand before? No? Right, at the back. Yes, right there, please. We have time for one more question. If you could rush to that row. You see him? Perfect. If you could, again, identify yourself. Brilliant.
Hello. You talked that the H2H concept starts by listening to the consumer. I would like to know if you have the old-fashioned techniques and research methodologies to listen to the consumer, or if you have new tools or new things that you can listen and get the insights to bring to life the H2H.
Yeah.
Really good question.
Yeah.
How do you listen?
I mean, we're using new tools every single day. Every single day we're looking for the newest, the latest, the best way for us to get the insights that we are looking for. Many of you, may have used technologies like Radiant 6, obviously we use that as well, but, we're always looking for what is the newest startup that is providing us better data. And when you think about it, the Twitter fire hose, as they call it, all the tweets that are been, it's, the machine learning, and the data analytics that you have to do to be able to not just isolate your brand, but also listen to what is in the surrounding your brand. It's very technologically heavy. So that's why, at this point, we consider ourselves more marketing hackers than just the typical marketer.
Yeah, but you say that, but it was just a guy looking at a tweet and saw Viva la Play, and that's it. Now, the idea came, so that's not too technologically driven. That's just a guy following what people are saying about the PlayStation.
And that is why, it's art and it's science.
Yeah.
For that same brand, during the World Cup, during the entire noise of the World Cup, listening in real time and being able to react to what people are saying is crucial. So the technology is needed not just to find those historic, samples of what is trending up, but also to be able to react quickly and find relevance in real time, and that's very tough to do without technology.
Fabiana, we'll close with you. How do you listen?
It's a combination of traditional, research. So we certainly have, brand tracking studies that are done every few years because they cost a ton of money. But we also supplement with, very punctual, day-to-day tracking with, the latest tools, a combination of tools, and user testing for everything that we do digital. We do in-country user testing and just go through A/B testing. So we try to listen as much as we can through a combination of tools. But as Carlos mentioned, today you cannot just rely on traditional research because it takes so long to execute. You need a more, quick pulse check, if you will, day to day, looking at that.
We have to leave it there. Fabiana, Farias, Jenkins, Carlos Garcia, muchísimas gracias a los dos. Muy interesante.
Gracias.
Hasta la próxima. Gracias.
Thank you so much.